I'm John McKee, editor of Messianic Apologetics, messianicapologetics.net. And I would like to welcome you to this episode of Messianic Insider, your theology and news roundup for December the 16th, 2025. Today, we are concluding a multi-part series on our theology roundup, which we started about a week and a half ago, on what is the new covenant. And that's going to be really short, but then later on, we've got a number of news stories to go through, and whether we like it or not, some of those news stories will be definitely dealing with the topic of growing anti-Semitism in our world. And so we've got to be paying attention to that, especially as a Messianic community, which believes itself to be the end-time move of God. All right, so we're going to conclude with our theology roundup on what is the new covenant. Please do go to the Messianic Apologetics website. This should be routine by now. Click on the Articles tab, scroll down to the letter N, what is the new covenant? Click there, and then a PDF file will open up. And we're going to specifically discuss current and future expectations. The reality of the new covenant is something quite important to us as men and women of faith, who believe that Yeshua's sacrifice at Golgotha, Calvary, is the impetus which has inaugurated it, as our Lord himself declared on that night 2 millennia ago. This cup which is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood. Luke 22:20, New American Standard. While today's Messianics are rightfully keen to emphasize how this declaration was made at a Passover Seder, how often do we underplay how the new covenant has been enacted in his blood? Yeshua's humiliation for sinful humanity and the pain he endured for us is what has brought us final forgiveness. Recognizing this and being supernaturally transformed should naturally manifest itself in proper obedience. Obeying the Lord is the least we can do following the appropriation of his sacrifice, considering that our collective human disobedience nailed Yeshua to the tree. Colossians 2:14. The new covenant promises each of us a new heart, a conscience which has been cleansed from sin, and a new life where obedience to the Lord's commandments and commitment to his mandate are manifest. This mandate primarily regards the accomplishment of the Torah's proto-gospel message. In you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. Genesis 12:3, New American Standard, also Galatians 3:8. Ancient Israel was given the commission, so keep and do them, for that is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples, who will hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. Deuteronomy 4:6, New American Standard. In the era of New Covenant, when such commandments can be supernaturally imprinted on the heart and mind, should not our obedience to God result in us, at least passively, testifying to the salvation we have in Yeshua by our actions? Matthew 5:16. The new covenant promises, of course, do not just include profound spiritual realities which born-again believers have benefited from since the first century. There are prophecies of Israel's kingdom being restored, which are directly connected to the new covenant. The essential reality of the new covenant might be present today among the holy ones or saints, but more awaits us in the future. How long will it be until we see those physical promises of all Israel brought into the promised land and prospering once again, with the Messiah reigning as king, is a great question. Today's generation of Messianic believers, with its diverse array of issues, controversies, problems, and limitations, may not be alive to see the second coming. Only the generation which has fully considered the ramifications of the new covenant, not only in the restoration of the Torah to God's people, but also in possessing cleansed hearts and minds empowered by the Spirit and guided by Yeshua's love, will be those who get to see the wider promises come to fulfillment. So we recognize, of course, and we've just gone through a number of the significant aspects of the new covenant: Jeremiah 31, Ezekiel 36, Hebrews 8, Hebrews 10, Galatians 4, 2 Corinthians 3. We've evaluated what's different about the new covenant. What are some of the new dynamics of the new covenant? We recognize that these are things operative today in the hearts and minds of those who have been transformed by the good news. But more is doubtlessly coming, as it involves the complete restoration of Israel, the return of exiled Israel to the Holy Land, and indeed so many things which we absolutely affirm today's Messianic community is here to facilitate. And as we contemplate these matters, they do involve us considering when we are, what is happening in today's world, perhaps some of our complacency as it involves current events, as it involves paying attention to what is going on, altering our lives, if necessary, changing some of our expectations involving what are we going to get out of life? What are we possibly not going to get out of life? And these are very important matters which are not being discussed to the extent they should be. So with that in mind, let's shift over to our news roundup. Okay, let me, before we get there, let me mention how tomorrow, as we continue in this motif of what is the new covenant, I'm going to be bringing out an old study, old as of 2013, 2014, I believe, called The Significance of the Messiah Event. So it continues on the motif of the change of law. How important is the Messiah event as the most important event in human history, the death, burial, and resurrection of the Lord? We're going to be continuing in that motif with what is the new covenant. And then later in the week, we'll discuss a little bit about Hanukkah, the Maccabean crisis, as well as some of the things which I'm sorting through, even though I don't have the new Charlie Kirk book, probably won't be getting it until January. We still want to discuss the significance of the Sabbath. And indeed, as I talked about yesterday, there are some people who are responding to it and not a very positive way. So we're going to be evaluating that. Okay, moving on to the news roundup. And we do have quite a bit of news to go through. Short study, but a lot of news. We do the news roundup after the theology roundup because the news roundup is, of course, something which is time sensitive. It changes from day to day. Number one, please be praying for peace, Israel, Gaza, the Middle East, and of course, by extension, what do we do with the rising anti-Semitism in our world? Number two, be praying for peace, Russia and Ukraine. And number three, be praying for reason and sanity to prevail here on the American home front. So we got a lot of things to go through. All the links I'm about to go through, these will be listed later today when this episode is archived at MessianicApologetics.net. So you just see where the episode is, and then it'll provide a list of all the things which we've gone through. So you can read the articles for yourself in greater detail. You can evaluate the different news stories, etc. All right, so let's get to our first news story. This is from Open Source Intel, Visegrad 24, the 15th of December. So yesterday, German Chancellor Merz stated that the US and EU countries have agreed to provide legal security guarantees to Ukraine, similar to NATO's Article 5. According to him, Ukraine's allies will no longer repeat the mistakes of the Minsk agreements. In the event of a new Russian attack, Ukraine will be able to defend itself not only on its own, but also with the support of those countries that assume the corresponding commitments, Ukrainian media cite Merz as saying. All right, so this is another one of these developments in the ongoing quest for peace in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Very soon it will be 4 years since this whole debacle started. I know many of us continue to have ongoing questions regarding why did this start? What's the whole point? We've just seen, hundreds of thousands of Russians and Ukrainians, a generation of Russians and Ukrainians die. And likewise, as I've mentioned before, some of the largest Messianic Jewish communities outside of North America are in Russia and Ukraine. So we continue to monitor this. We continue to pray for peace, although I know by now many of us are just not hopeful, but we'll wait and see. Okay, here's a sad story from yesterday. This is from the New York Post. General Hospital actor Anthony Geary dead at 78. Now, I can't say that I am someone who watched General Hospital that frequently. I can't say that I really follow the career of Anthony Geary that frequently, but I do know that General Hospital as a soap opera, it was something that a lot of people watched in the 1970s, 80s, in the 90s, and it represents a generational shift. So our thoughts and prayers are with his family and his friends. But it represents we are living in a new and different time today. Okay, here's an important one. This involves the recent terrorist incident in Sydney, Australia, Bondi Beach. This is from the Jerusalem Post. If there is a Jewish Nobel for saving Jews, Ahmed al-Ahmed just won it. A Muslim hero stepped into gunfire to save Jewish lives. Zavika Klein argues that Ahmed al-Ahmed, the 43-year-old fruit shop owner who tackled and disarmed a gunman during the Bondi Beach Hanukkah terror attack, deserves to be honored in the moral tradition of the righteous among the nations. Shot twice while saving lives, al-Ahmed exemplifies courage that transcends faith and background. And I do think that while a lot of us are very upset, we're even infuriated at what took place in Australia, and people are doubtlessly blaming it on unvetted immigration from these different countries which tend to hate Western civilization. We cannot broad brush all Muslims, all practitioners of Islam as being supportive of this, as this evidence very clearly portrays. There are definitely people who, in the Islamic community, who are incensed about this as well. And Ahmed al-Ahmed rose up and tried to stop this. So our prayers are with him for a full recovery. Okay, here's one from End Time Headlines. Take it as you will. More Muslim candidates are seeking offices. Mamdani effect takes hold. And he's, of course, the mayor-elect of New York City. We're going to expect him to be mayor at the turn of the year. And this issue of more Muslim candidates are seeking to take office in America. And I know that a lot of Christian people, a lot of Messianic people are, how is this happening? This is just opening the door to Islamicism, radical extremism, or I don't see all these Islamic candidates. Well, if all you do is vote at, for example, a national U.S. political election, so the presidency, or at the state level, you might vote for when the governor changes. You need to vote more frequently because the changes are actually taking place more at the localized level. people who are running for city council, people who are running for school board, people who make the decisions regarding how real estate is zoned. What can you build over there? What can you not build over there? That is where these different Islamicist candidates are entering into office, because a lot of the average people aren't paying attention to what's going on in their extreme local elections. And so these people just, they're elected, they win, and they decide a lot of these local policies, which a lot of people just are oblivious to. That is where a lot of the changes are taking place. The school board, the city council. Why all of a sudden are we seeing not just all these mosques appear out of nowhere, but all these different Islamic, retail places, halal this, that. And nobody is saying that people who are Muslim can't practice their religion. But if you're concerned about this, vote more frequently, especially in local elections. That's where a lot of this is happening. Okay, so December the 15th from Fox News. Surge of hate. New data reveals a staggering 893% spike in anti-Semitic attacks over the past decade, underscoring the nearly 9,500 incidents reported just last year. Okay, so here you see a chart, and anti-Semitism attacks surge in U.S. 23, 24. Yeah, it's on the rise. Now, you might be able to say, well, okay, that's during the Biden years. Maybe that will decrease now during the Trump administration. Take this as a road sign for what it represents. Anti-Semitism is on the increase. And surely, if you have a Messianic Jewish congregation or synagogue, you need to be raising awareness of this problem. Because while, yes, your security team needs to be aware of it, you need to take note of who comes in your building, who's attending different functions. You need to be aware of suspicious people, suspicious activities. This kind of thing is also going to affect attendance. A father and a mother with young children who are being drawn into the Messianic movement, a Messianic Jewish father and mother with young children. Maybe we need to limit our participation in the Messianic congregation. Maybe it's not as safe as it once was. These are things you need to begin to address publicly and not just solely say, well, we pray about that in our congregational leadership prayer time. No. You need to be bringing these things out and mentioning them. Act like leaders. Okay, so here's a story. This is from Fox News yesterday, December the 15th. Breaking. Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino will decide about his future at the Bureau in the next few weeks. Two sources tell David S. Punt and Jake B. Gibson. Okay. I know that a lot of people had much higher hopes of the second Trump administration than they are seeing manifest. And it involves things like, Dan Bongino is going to be the deputy director of the FBI. He's going to make sure that there's transparency and that we have answers to things which have bothered us the past 4 years, 8 years, whatever it is. How deep is the deep state? And how much has Dan Bongino possibly discovered he cannot do, no matter how much he wants to see done? We just wait and see. But if Dan Bongino decides to leave, that is a good indication that while we need to be very thankful that Donald Trump is in the White House and that we still have our right of free speech, right of worship, that maybe he was just a stopgap in order to take advantage as much as we could of this 4-year window. I don't know. I mean, Trump could surprise us. The administration could definitely surprise us. But, after almost a year and not seeing some of the actions I know many of us would like to have seen, we need to be planning for some contingencies. All right, from open source intel yesterday, December the 15th, the International Criminal Court in The Hague has rejected Israel's main appeal against the arrest warrants. The warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant will remain in place. Okay, so yeah, and that's all, of course, tied into the Israel-Gaza conflict and the fact that the Palestinian PR was more powerful, whether we like that or not. Okay, here's another story. This is from open source intel, Russia, Ukraine, and there's a 36-second clip. Russian ambassador to the UK, excuse me, Andrei Kalin. There should not be a deal. We have to talk about the surrender of Ukraine. Okay, and this is how the Russian, at least ambassador to the United Kingdom, is talking about ending the conflict. And what does surrender mean? Surrender and then full annexation of Ukraine? What the hell are you talking about here? So again, not very optimistic. I'm not optimistic about seeing a final solution. Maybe that's not the best term. A final resolution, excuse me, to the Russia-Ukraine conflict and some kind of an honorable peace. Not when a high-profile Russian ambassador talks crap like that. I'm sorry. All right, so we know from yesterday that there was possibly a little dust up in U.S.-Israeli relations. So here, open source intel, posting a clip from the Oval Office, President Trump, 38 seconds. Trump, Israel and I get along very well. My relationship with Bibi Netanyahu is a very good one. We have a very good relationship with Israel. We actually have a very good relationship with just about everybody in the Middle East. Okay. We know that certain things get reported or possibly get reported to different news agencies, and how much of it is accurate, how much of it is exaggerated, and then how much does the president or someone in his administration have to come and clarify something. But we do note that one of these days, there's not going to be as good relations with the state of Israel as there is possibly today. All right, now moving on to Europe, and this is something which I know should disturb many of you. Poland's president ends Hanukkah tradition at presidential palace. Poland's newly elected president, Karol Nawrocki, hope I pronounced that properly, has not organized an official Hanukkah celebration at the presidential palace, ending a custom observed since 2006. The tradition was introduced under President Lech Kaczynski, hope I pronounced that properly too, and later maintained by Bronislaw Komorowski and Andrzej Duda. I apologize if I mispronounced those names, making this the first break in nearly 2 decades of continuity. Now, here's the reasoning behind it. Nawrocki had openly stated during the election campaign that he would not host Hanukkah celebrations, citing his attachment to Christian values and his intention to promote holidays he personally observes. His stance became a point of attention during the runoff election, particularly as he sought support from voters aligned with far-right politician Grzegorz Braun, I hope I pronounced that properly, whose electorate overwhelmingly backed Nawrocki in the second round. And if you look up Braun, he is someone who at a government Hanukkah commemoration actually took a fire extinguisher and extinguished the menorah which was lit. So yeah, this is Christian nationalism, people. And one of the things which we do not, one of the things which does not escape our notice, this is in Poland. This is where a huge amount of the Holocaust took place. And mind you, there are going to be some other, government, commemorations of Hanukkah. So it's not as though Hanukkah is not being remembered by anyone in the Polish government or that it's illegal, but we're taking note of this. And we're taking note of some of the, latent anti-Semitism of this whole Christian nationalism thing. So mind you, the Polish government, they're not required to remember Hanukkah, but it's an appropriate gesture to the Jewish community to the complicated history of the Holocaust and to now say, no, I'm only going to observe Christian holidays because I'm a Christian. I'm not going to remember the contribution of Polish Jews to our society. That is a huge red flag. That is a huge indication of where the world is going. Sooner or later, will it not be observed at the White House? We'll wait and see. All right, so here's a story from the Epoch Times yesterday, the 15th of December. On August the 17th, about 4 months ago, I sent Prime Minister Anthony Albanese of Australia a letter in which I gave him warning that the Australian government's policy was promoting and encouraging anti-Semitism in Australia, Netanyahu said during a meeting on Sunday. So, yeah, there are going to be a lot of people, especially figures like Prime Minister Netanyahu, who are responding to what took place at Bondi Beach, which is the worst terrorist attack so far in the history of Australia. Okay, anti-Semitism, right-wing watch. Our Joel Webbin, gotta love him. Not really. Here you have a 1 minute, 19-second clip, but here, and I watched this in its entirety twice yesterday. Anti-Semitic Christian nationalist pastor Joel Webbin rages that the Holocaust has become a false, wicked, satanic religion used to oppress young white men and must be ground into dust. So in this clip, he talks about what he labels as Holocaust-anity. And while he is very upset about how, for example, he lives in the state of Texas too, you're seeing things like these big giant mosques being built, these big giant Hindu temples being built. They need to be, crushed, ground into powder, right? They need to be stopped. This is a Christian nation. We're not here for Islam or other false religions. He says that one of the things which is worse than all of this is this remembrance of the Holocaust and seemingly making reference to different Holocaust museums, different Holocaust memorials. And he says that it's become a false satanic religion designed to oppress white young men. When I was growing up and I was in high school, we had certainly, teachings on the Holocaust. We learned about World War II. It was not isolated from the United States getting involved in World War II. We learned about the Diary of Anne Frank. We learned about the dangers of Nazism and how it's to be prevented here today. But it didn't have to do with any kind of, if you're a young white man, you need to be ashamed of yourself. Joel Webbin is a problem. And we need to keep some of what he's doing in mind. Let's just say that. I'm really at a loss for saying anything. Anyway, don't want to repeat some of those adult terms. Okay, this is very surprising. Hold on, I have missed a story in my notes. Sorry about this one. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, so as we go in order of the stories as I find them, this is from Reuters, and there's a clip available. This is from yesterday afternoon, 5:15 p.m. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said the question of territory remained painful in peace talks to end Russia's war on Ukraine, but that he believed the U.S. would help find a compromise. Okay, so yeah, the issue of ending the conflict in Russia-Ukraine does involve territory. While the ambassador to the United Kingdom said some really over-the-top things, the issue of territory is going to be a difficult one. And look, as believers, we do need to be praying for peace, an end to the bloodshed, and for some kind of security to manifest itself. Okay, here's a really surprising one per the whole theme of anti-Semitism. Reposted from Awesome Jew, although it's not the only source I've seen reposted. 2-minute, 28-second clip from Alex Jones, of all people. And no fan of Alex Jones here, but what he says needs to be taken note of. Breaking. Real Alex Jones blasts what he calls fake Christian right-wing patriots who blame Jews for everything and are now openly aligning with Islamicists, calling them idiots in the aftermath of the Bondi Beach terror attack targeting Jews. Yeah, there's a lot of crap that comes out of the mouth of Alex Jones. But one of the things which I know a number of us have been witnessing on social media are a number of, excuse me, Christian patriot nationalist types who believe that some of their perhaps true allies are Muslims because they look at Jesus as being the Messiah and being a prophet, whereas the Jews, they reject Jesus. And, you know, one of the common claims is of course, the Talmud says Jesus is burning in feces in hell. Talmud says a lot of things about a lot of different topics. But here, Alex Jones calls out, and rightfully so, Christian patriots who are joining with Islamicists. They're idiots. They're crazy. And they are precisely that. All right. Now, this should have you concerned about the U.S. administration. What is it doing? Open source intel, December the 16th, 2:56 a.m. Israel expresses alarm as Qatar enters advanced negotiations with the U.S. to acquire F-35 jets, joining Saudi Arabia and Turkey in potential purchases. You know, it's one thing to see Saudi Arabia get F-35 jets, possibly. Turkey, that's upsetting, but Qatar, with some of their known involvement in Islamicism, very concerning. All right, so Visegrad 24, this concerns more the Western Hemisphere, but also Europe as well. Nicolas Maduro now appears to have an escape route to Belarus. Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenko said in an interview with U.S. broadcaster Newsmax that he would be ready to host Maduro. And scrolling down at the same time, Lukashenko added that it would be better if Maduro reached an agreement with the United States. Yeah. What's going to happen? Well, we know that there is, building pressure on the Venezuelan government, building pressure on Maduro to leave Venezuela, but where would he possibly go? Well, here you have a potential option in Belarus. All right, so one of the things which is definitely going to be discussed more and more frequently, and I have been raising this question myself to people. If you are certainly a young Messianic Jew, you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, you're here in the diaspora, North America even, you need to be putting out feelers regarding Aliyah. You need to be looking into what would it take for you to become a citizen of the state of Israel. But likewise, if you're older than that and you have a comfortable life here in America and you wonder, how would I move to Israel? It's too expensive. Here's a post by Hillel Fuld, which you need to take into consideration here. This is from this morning, 8:45 a.m. He says, okay, I need your help. I'm so sick of people, many of whom haven't been in Israel in decades, telling me that Israel is unaffordable. To them, Israel equals Jerusalem or Tel Aviv. But there are hundreds of affordable places in Israel. If you live in one, a place in Israel that's affordable, even if you're not a millionaire, do me a favor and comment the name of the place in the comments below. I'll start. Beit Shemesh. Bonus place. Carmei Gat. Please, if you live in Israel, don't have millions and are living a perfectly good life, comment below where you live. Okay, so I know a lot of people who live here in the United States. You may have a lot of comfort here in the United States and you want to totally duplicate that should you have to move to Israel, and so that's holding you back. Well, obviously, if you move to Israel, it's for your safety. Israel is a safe haven. It's the Jewish state. May also be because of the fulfillment of prophecy. So there will be things you have to give up. But it's not impossible. So Hillel Fold raises some questions which you've got to take into consideration. All right, Dale Partridge. Dale Partridge is a Christian nationalist, definitely replacement theology, believes the church is the new Israel, does not support the Jewish people. Here's a clip from him, which came across my feed yesterday evening. Can Christians support Hanukkah? And he says no. So you can watch this in your free time. Of course, he acknowledges from John chapter 10 that yes, Yeshua, Jesus, was present in the temple complex during Hanukkah, but like a lot of people in Hebrew roots, he concludes he did not observe it. He did not celebrate it. He says Jesus was only there. That's all it was about. The most important thing is that Jesus is the temple. The temple was later destroyed in 70 CE, AD, and that, of course, Jews deny Christ, meaning that they serve a totally different God, by extension, meaning Satan. And is there any kind of reasoning with someone like this? No, there isn't. But this is the kind of thing you're going to see more and more frequently. Not, Yeshua was present in the temple complex during Hanukkah. If it had not been for the victory of the Maccabees, there might not be a Jewish people for him to have been born into, much less a temple present for him to be dedicated in and for him to use as a point of teaching reference. Okay, that's not how supersessionists like Dale Partridge approach things. And of course, coming to the conclusion that temple was later destroyed and Jews deny Christ, meaning that they worship Satan, you can't reason with that. And Christians who investigate what Hanukkah is and they see some important lessons from it, they're just all wrong. Things are getting darker. Things are really getting darker. Okay, so here we have an interesting story from today. My charisma. What's beneath the Bermuda Triangle may be fulfilling end times prophecy. Okay, so there are some stories out there. What's under the Bermuda Triangle? And here, the conclusion basically is a growing number of scientific discoveries are forcing researchers to confront a humbling reality. Earth is far less understood than previously assumed. From the depths of the Atlantic Ocean to the ancient stones of Egypt, what lies beneath the surface is challenging long-held models of geology, history, and human understanding. So we're just going to, you can read this article in its fuller detail later. We're going to just simply note that, yes, let's be humble as believers. There are things about planet Earth, about Earth's history, we don't fully know. And of course, there are things about the greater universe we don't fully know. And a lot of this does involve different approaches to Genesis chapters 1 through 11. And, while in evangelicalism, it's much easier to have an open discussion about different points of view regarding Genesis 1 through 11, human origins, etc. It's not as easy to have that discussion, if not impossible in some places, in today's contemporary Messianic movement. That's not wise. And I've said that for many years. But here we're just going to take note of a charisma story. I don't know what the things are specifically which may be discovered regarding the Bermuda Triangle, but there are things about this Earth and about this greater universe we don't have all the answers for. Yet, one thing we can all agree on, when Yeshua returns, he will be there to reveal to us the different secrets. And not only will he reveal to us the different secrets, but he will be there to hold our hand if we have any difficulties. All right, two more stories. This is from the New York Post. Today, the 16th of December, Erica Kirk announced Monday that she had a productive conversation with Candace Owens, signaling a possible thaw in their rift following weeks of public tension in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Okay, and we're just going to leave it at that. And then finally, although I will have some observations to make here, I saw this right before getting started. This is from Open Source Intel Today at 11:30 a.m. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said he would not seek the presidency in 2028 if Vice President J.D. Vance enters the Republican race. Okay, and I'm just going to mention this. You know, whether you like Vance or Rubio, they're both Roman Catholic. Okay, but more so than that, what kind of a conservative Republican movement is going to be around in 2028? And right now, we have President Trump. He is doubtlessly the most pro-Israel, pro-Zionist president ever in American history. What's going to come after him if the Republicans stay in power? What's going to come after him? What new dynamics are we going to have to deal with? Are we still going to see anti-Semitism like we've seen in the past year? Is it going to deter sufficiently and we're going to have a breather, or is it going to be on the continual rise? We don't know. And these are very concerning things to me. They should be very concerning things to you. So we know that the Lord is in complete control. He knows what's going on. He knows what he's doing. And we have access to the infinite power of heaven. I pray that every day you appeal to the Lord for protection, for provision, for discernment, and for being able to adequately follow the signs of the times. All right. As always, on behalf of Messianic Apologetics, I would like to sincerely thank you for your ongoing prayers, encouragement, and support for all of our ministry efforts. If you have not, please do visit my website, messianicapologetics.net, where you can access a wide array of articles, FAQs, frequently asked questions entries, back issues of Outreach Israel News. You can take a look at some back episodes of Messianic Insider, different McKee moment shorts, and generally look into our different ministry adventures over the years. And please, if you have not already, give a thumbs up or a heart to this live stream. It'll definitely help its exposure on social media. We will see you again tomorrow with another episode of Messianic Insider. Until then, may God bless you, shalom, and take care.